We're ready to go.
Recording in progress.
All right, I guess I better get ready. All right, well, welcome everybody to the August 4th, 2021 Wasco County Board of Commissioners virtually again. We'll hear a little bit more about the reason why we're just meeting virtually, but there's been some changes in COVID. Before we get started, I wanted to welcome a special guest. Our Congressman Bentz is with Tyler in his office, and I just wanted to welcome him and ask if he had anything he wanted to say before we got going today.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. You can thank Tyler or I can thank Tyler for this opportunity. I'm not sure what the name of the coffee group is, but I was introduced to the group 3 or 4 years ago, and when I come through the Dalles, I always try, if it's early in the morning, to stop by and say hi. And so Tyler invited me down to say hello to the county court, and I was just mentioning, Mr. Chair, that I hadn't seen you or Commissioner Kramer in 10 months. I don't know, and now I get to see you twice in a couple of days. So it's a very, 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 very welcome to see folks that are normal now that I'm back from DC for a while. So it's a great way to start out. I will be doing 20 town halls over the next couple of weeks, one in each of my 20 counties. I don't know exactly when I make it back here to the Dalles, but we will. And so I'd like to be able to tell you the day right now, but I don't know what day it's going to be. We are going to start in Pendleton, I think, Monday. And I'm not sure exactly what direction we go from there, but I look forward to coming back and listening to people talk about federal issues. And I'm anxious to hear what I can be doing better in DC after my first 7 months there. And I have located the hallways and the restrooms and everything else in DC, and actually appeared on the floor 3 or 4 times talking about wildfire and drought, which is, in case you're wondering, it's most of the people east of the Mississippi their problem with water is how to get rid of it. And when I talk about drought, they don't get it. They don't understand what it's like not to have water, and they don't understand what it's like to be so hot. Although I think they got a little bit of glimpse of it. Mr. Chair, as we listened to Congressman Westerman yesterday talk about the smoke coming through Washington D.C. from Oregon fire. So we're getting the message across, and hopefully we'll have some decent new legislation to address some of the issues. But anyway, it's great to be here. Sorry to interrupt your meeting. I'm very happy to be in the Dalles, a beautiful town, and you guys are doing great work here on all kinds of levels. And I've had an opportunity to, of course, to compare cities across CD2 in my year of running for this office, my 7 months of holding it. And the Dalles is doing great. Comparatively speaking, you're doing great. So anyway, in your county, again, happy to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity.
You bet. Thanks for being here. You're always welcome to our commission meetings. We'd be happy to see you. So, and thanks for the meeting yesterday. We had a really good discussion. Congressman Bentz brought a colleague out, Congressman Westerman from Arkansas, of all places. And he is, I think, the ranking person on the House Forestry. Is that right?
Yes, he's the Congressman Westerman is an engineer with a graduate degree from Yale in forestry. Arkansas, played defensive back for the Hogs. I guess that's what they're called, Razorbacks. And he went out and designed sawmills for a number of years, and now he's been in the Congress for 7, the ranking member on natural resources. I am very happy that he is a friend. He selected me to be ranking member on water, oceans, and wildlife, the subcommittee of natural resources. And so I've been able to use that position to advance, at least the way you advance things in DC is by talking about problems and suggesting change when you're in the minority. So that's what I've been doing. And so thanks to Congressman Westerman's selection of me as a ranking member in that space. And I've talked about water issues on the Columbia, water issues in the Klamath, water issues, the ocean issues, and all things fish and ESA and all the stuff you guys know all too much about. But I have Congressman Westerman to thank. We have him to thank for that position of power.
Very good. Yeah, we had a good discussion about forest policy with a lot of other commissioners from Eastern Oregon. So, okay, thanks again for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's.
Hi, wait a minute. Hi. Can I'd like to address the Congressman for a second. Hello, Congressman Bentz. This is Kathy Schwartz, the other Wasco County Commissioner. I was wondering how long you're going to be around. I'd love to meet with you for a few minutes.
Well, my plan was to hop in my my rented car, which is the size of a bushel basket with wheels. It's very sad, and begin my drive back to Ontario. But if I don't have to wait terrifically long, I would be more than happy to meet with you. How long before you would be available?
Oh, I think it's going to be a while. So I sent you a text, so you'll have my phone number. So maybe we can get together in your next trip in.
Oh, or I'm happy to call you. You tell me what time today, and I'm happy to call you. I'm driving for about 5 more hours, and so I can call anytime. And so if I have your number, if you've texted it in, if you don't mind, I'll just call you this afternoon.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Sure.
All righty. Before we get going, any changes to the agenda, Kathy or commissioners?
Did you want to add the letter to the discussion?
The
NSA?
I'm not sure if we have had time to look that over, but yeah.
Okay.
I could say leave that up to Tyler. He can bring that up later if he wants to.
Okay, that was the only thing that I had a question about.
Okay, very good. Then let's go ahead and jump into the COVID update. Our fine folks from North Central Public Health are here. Thank you so much for being here. I'm not overly happy that we're have to have this discussion again, because some things aren't going that great these days, but we do appreciate you being here, and welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. So this is Dr. Mimi McDonald. I'm the Public Health Officer for North Central Public Health District, serving Wasco, Sherman, and Gillum counties. Our Board of County Commissioners asked me to come. I have been back at the meeting for a while to present kind of some updates, what's happening with COVID in our county. So first off, just an update of the numbers in Wasco County. Total number of COVID cases, this is way from the beginning, 1,595. There have been 31 deaths in Wasco County. Sherman and Gillum once again are tied for number of cases. Sort of remarkable. They both have 87 cases. There's been 1 death reported associated with COVID in Gillum County and 2 in Sherman County. Next slide, please. All righty, that's right. It's time to brush up on your math skills again. So this is our epi curve. On the left-hand side of the screen as you're looking at it, that's back in November of 2020, and these are case counts. So these are case counts per week. So we can see where we had our winter surge. Then we had kind of our spring surge. It had its peak in April. And if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see where the cases are going up again. So we clearly, and of course, this is not just in Wasco County, but in Oregon, the United States, we've had a significant increase in cases in the past 2 weeks. So next slide, please. Okay, this is just another way of looking at it. Instead of by week, this is by month. So you can see we had an awful lot of cases back in January that tapered down. Again, the surge in April, and then once again in July. So Wasco County is represented in blue, Sherman and Gillum, of course, much smaller counties, but they kind of are following the same trend as well. Next slide. Okay. Here is our 2-week metrics. Now, you guys remember we used to look at these all the time to figure out what zone we're in, if we're moderate risk or low risk or whatnot. It's still important to kind of keep an idea of this. There's no county movements, there's no statewide restrictions in terms of capacity, things like that, but it does really give us a sense of what's happening in our county. So in the past 2 weeks, there have been 96 cases in Wasco County, which is definitely a significant increase. When we look at the numbers per 100,000, this also kind of gives us a mark. It's a little bit easier to, since the numbers are much bigger in Wasco County, it's sort of more of a meaningful number. In Sherman and Gillum, those rates can vary so much just because of their smaller populations. But, you know, you can see that our rates are up in Wasco County at 351 per 100,000, and that's compared to the state average of 205. And again, Sherman and Gillum, they go up and down a lot, so it's a little bit harder to get to have an accurate sense from that, from those case rates. The other thing that we like to look at is our percent positivity. This is number of tests in 100 that are positive, and that's what gives us the sense of whether or not we're doing enough testing. So in Wasco County in the past 2 weeks, our test percent positive was 6.5. As remember, we want to keep it below 5%. So we could do with some more testing, and same across Oregon, testing is down. So the percent positivity rate goes up. What that means is we might be missing some people. Next slide. Okay, so here's that epi curve. This is for Oregon. You can see the biggest spike was last winter. Then we have the bump in the spring, and then again across Oregon, just this kind of middle summer increase in cases. Next slide. This is something that I wanted to bring everyone's attention to. You know, we talk about cases a lot and the numbers, but of course, what really matters is how many people are really truly physically affected by this. Well, unfortunately, as we know, as cases go up, so do people who have severe complications or need to be hospitalized. So in total, over 12,000 Oregonians have been hospitalized with COVID. That's from the beginning of the pandemic. 18% of those hospitalized have needed some type of care in the intensive care unit. And the median length of stay, so most common length of stay is for 6 days. So that's quite an amount of time in the hospital. The kind of the graph on the bottom of the screen is again hospitalization. So just kind of pointing out, and you may have heard about this, that, you know, hospital beds are at a premium all across Oregon, some of it due to COVID, some of it due to staffing issues. It's just there's a incredible shortage of available medical staff. Again, not just in our county, but across the state and across other states as well. And with an increase in number of people needing hospital beds, what's been happening is some of the hospitals, including our local hospital, have had to start postponing planned surgeries. So elective surgeries, not the emergency ones, but the planned surgeries, just because either there are not enough beds and they're taking up with people with COVID, or simply the fact that we don't have enough staff to take care of them, of the people in the surgeries. Same thing across the United States, little tiny bit different, but you can see that graph going in the direction that we don't like on the right-hand side of your screen, which is up. Next slide. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more cheerfully here. How are we doing vaccination wise? So in Oregon, 69.1% of people 18 and up are vaccinated. That's fantastic. Wasco County, we are very solidly doing pretty well. 61.7% of people 18 and up. I added our neighbors. So Gillum County percent vaccinated rate, and this is of course just the first dose, but 42.8%. Sherman County is at 54.9%. Hood River County is at 74.8%. You all know how competitive I am. I want us to get in front of Hood River. I know y'all are too. So here's another way of looking at this, also because I like the colors on this slide, but this is again, it's the same map. The darker colors are counties that have higher vaccination rates, the lighter ones are lower ones. So, and then what I did was I superimposed the case rate. So in other words, are vaccinations making any difference at all? The answer would be yes. So, you know, our neighbors out east in Umatilla County, they have a low vaccination rate and a very high case rate. So 914 per 100,000 individuals. Wasco County, again, we have a high case rate right now at 351 per 100,000. Hood River is less than half of that at 156. And then we have some kind of in the middle. I tried to do some of the larger counties because again, those small county numbers can be really variable. So Jackson County, which has kind of the, looking at the colors, about the same amount of people vaccinated as Wasco. They're at around 392 cases per 100,000. Polk County, a little bit more folks vaccinated. They're at 218. So again, it's not perfect. And in smaller counties, you may find very low vaccination rates and some weeks some low case rates. But in general, the counties that have more people who are vaccinated have lower case counts. Next slide. What's going on? Two things. Number one, change in the virus itself. On the call that I was on with the Oregon Health Authority yesterday, from the COVID-19 viruses that are typed that go through the state lab, at this point, that Delta variant makes up over 90%, that's 90, of the cases in Oregon that have been typed. This is no surprise. This is exactly what's happened across the country. Why are we so concerned about the Delta variant? It is just much more transmissible than the original variant, or excuse me, than the original, the OG COVID-19, and then also even more transmissible than that first one that we were kind of concerned about, the one that came from, or one of the ones from Great Britain, right? That was 50% more. The thought is that this virus may be over 90% more transmissible than the OG one. So think chickenpox, measles. It is just so much more effective. It is a really efficient virus. That's why it beat out all the competition, because it's really good at replicating once it gets inside someone. So that's half of it. There is this Delta variant. We know that's part of the issue, making cases go up. What's the other half? Well, you know, there's been a change in behavior. Well, not surprisingly, there's been a change in sort of the statewide mandates. Obviously, that has changed significantly. There are still some federal mandates that are applied in terms of mask wearing in transportation and other areas, and a lot of places still continue to have mask mandates. Mostly you'll think about healthcare places, but other congregate living settings. So, but the big change in behavior, if we've all noticed in Fred Meyer, mask mandate has been removed. Also, capacity maximums have been removed. So you're more likely to go into a crowded place than you were before. And just, it's summer, we miss everyone. So there's been an increase, excuse me, in travel and social gatherings. So the combination of those two is what makes our rates go up. Next slide, please. So what can we do about it? Number one, if you not had the opportunity to get vaccinated, getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the most efficient way to protect yourself and those around you from the COVID-19 virus. So getting vaccinated is number one. If you have questions about the safety, the efficacy, what have you, of the vaccine, please get your questions answered by a healthcare professional, maybe not someone who is not a healthcare professional on Facebook or perhaps on a news station or propaganda. What else can you do? You can wear a mask. You can keep your distance. Next, please get a COVID test if you are exposed. Now, this has been a switch, and I'll tell people that there's been a slight change. We had been recommending that if people were exposed to someone with COVID-19, unvaccinated folks, please become tested. Vaccinated folks, we said, oh, you don't need to be tested unless you're starting to have symptoms. So now the recommendation is that anyone who's been exposed to COVID-19 from someone with a case, that they please go ahead and get tested, and just get tested if you're symptomatic. And by symptomatic, I know it's a little bit of a challenge, but even things, scratchy throat, runny nose, we know that people can have no symptoms, very mild symptoms. This, this infection is out there, so please get tested. What else can you do? If you get a call from your friendly neighborhood public health person and you're requested to isolate or quarantine because you've either have COVID-19 or you've been exposed to it, please follow the guidance. Please isolate at home if you're infected, or please quarantine so you, if you have the possibility of developing COVID-19, so you don't infect others. Remember, we can transmit it without knowing that we have it. So it's really, really important. to follow that guidance. So please pick up the phone. If you know that you have been exposed, do pick up the phone. We're still trying really hard to contain this, and our own personal behavior is one of the ways that we can contain it. Next, stay home if you're sick. We all know that. And then lastly, please avoid sharing misinformation. If you're not sure of something, instead of reposting it or resharing it, just either find out the actual facts from a trusted source, or maybe not even click on it. Misinformation and disinformation is widely spread. One of the reasons is for money. People, when something is kind of an exciting or a new headline, we all click on it. That's why they call it clickbait. But those people, they don't necessarily believe what they're putting forth in that information, but they do know that it's going to grab people's attention, therefore they get more money. So please avoid sharing it. Maybe don't even click on it. Next. So I talked about what individuals can do. What can employers, employers, agencies, sort of the larger folks can do. So in a bigger sense. So please create or continue the good work that you've done with creating a safe work environment. So not only with all the sanitation and things like that, making sure your employees have the opportunity to be physically distant, having adequate ventilation, either with the use of opening windows, air filters, etc., but also the culture of your workplace. If the culture of your workplace is that you go to work, whether you're sick, whether you're just incredibly wiped out, that is the culture. You must come to work. Well, everyone's going to come to work. But if you can create a culture that is very accepting and encouraging of people staying home when they're sick, that is going to do a lot to keep all of your employees healthy, to keep everyone able to work. It's much better for someone to miss 1 or 2 days and be able to be tested, or just miss a couple days than have the entire office or the entire workspace become ill. So what else can employers do? Well, they can let their employees know, and they can provide paid time off if somebody needs to take time off due to COVID. If you get a vaccine, most of us remember, if you got your second shot, probably most of us didn't feel so hot the next day. I certainly didn't. So let your employees know, not only can you take that time off, it will be a sick day or a paid day of time off. Also, of course, for illness, isolation, and quarantine. Next, what else can employers do? They can require masks, not only of their employees or their patrons. If they have a workforce that they are concerned about, and if they have a lot of people coming into the workplace, even though it's not a state mandate, you can still request people to follow your guidance and wear a mask indoors in public places. You guys remember the signs: no shirt, no shoes, no service. You can also request that people wear a mask. It's a reasonable thing to do. Think of it that you're protecting your employees and also maybe protecting your customers as well. What's another thing that employers can do? Well, you may have heard too that it is possible and it is legal for employers to require COVID-19 vaccinations, or of course, if someone has a medical exemption, or if people decline the test, to have, decline the vaccine, to have regular testing. So that is an incredibly effective way, one, to increase the number of people who get vaccinated, two, to keep COVID-19 out of the workplace. You probably heard the federal government and also the United States military is mandating this now. Also, some very large employers such as Google and Facebook are making this requirements. It's not against the law. It can happen. All right. What are some other things to do? Those were, that last one was a bit of a stick. Here's some carrots. Any Wasco County resident who gets their first vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, gets a $50 gift card. Where can I get this? At Mid-Columbia Medical Center, North Central Public Health District, One Community Health, Deschutes Rim Clinic, and all of those pharmacies listed. You will either get an actual Visa gift card, or you will get a sticker on your vaccine card, and then you can come to North Central Public Health District and redeem this. This is in huge thing. This is the way that our Wasco County commissioners, along with the health department advice, have decided is the most effective way, and a way to help all of the residents of Wasco County. And it's proving to be an incredibly effective incentive. So I'm exceptionally grateful to all of our county commissioners and county staff for agreeing to this. What are some other things happening? As I mentioned, upcoming events in terms of vaccines, you can get a vaccination from your primary care provider and pharmacies. You can get one from North Central Public Health District. Just give us a call. Then there are going to be a few events coming up. We haven't done a lot of mass vaccination events lately, and these are not huge ones. We're not talking hundreds, but 20, 40, maybe 60. Kind of starting to think about that getting back to school. So on Thursday, August 5th, that's just coming up on Thursday at the Dalles Middle School, we'll be having a vaccine clinic. This Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson will be available. So 12 and ups can get vaccinated. You can register online, or you can give us a call here at North Central Public Health District. Also at the Dalles High School, as they're doing in-person registration, during in-person registration, there'll be representative from North Central Public Health District able to provide COVID-19 vaccines. The hours we're not completely set. It'll just be during registration, and that will just be walk-ups. So it could be a student, staff member, family members, whoever walks up and signs up. All right, so this slide, this is a little bit for me to remind myself that what we've been going through, just thinking of the tide, things coming in and out in waves, things going up and down, and it's a challenge. It's been really hard, and I know on everyone, there's not one person who hasn't been affected by this pandemic. In healthcare, there has been a lot of people sort of leaving positions because of the challenge, and I know it's going to be a big lift for schools as we go into the school year. So everyone, just try and remember, yep, it is sort of like the tide is going to come in and out, and to try and have compassion for one another and take care of each other. Thanks. And if you have questions, I can take them.
All right, thank you, Dr. McDonald. There are 2 questions in the chat. Maybe you can address those, and I would encourage people, if you want to ask a question or you have a question, put it in the chat. Is a really simple way to do that.
Yeah, all right. So do I know what percentage of Wasco County COVID cases are the Delta variant? That's a great question, Sheila. We don't actually, don't have the ability to determine like, oh, we're going to send X number of cases to be typed. So we are using the state average to go with that. So, and based on the way that it's been transmitted and number of close contacts who are infected, I am certain that it's the same amount in Wasco County as it is across the state. Where can we go to get tested? Well, you certainly can give your primary care provider a call, or you can give North Central Public Health District a call, and we do at no cost COVID-19 testing. We've actually had to increase our hours, so now we're doing it for 2 hours in the morning and also 1 hour in the afternoon, and you can give us a call. That's here in the Dalles. And if there are outbreaks or if employers have concerns, we are always willing to go out to any workplace, any of our counties, and aid with testing there.
Excellent. All right. So we'll have a quick opportunity for the commissioners to ask questions that they have. Either commissioner, do you have questions? Go ahead, Kathy.
Of course I do. Good morning. Oh, Dr. McDonald, it's great to see you again. So a question I have is, sometimes we see vaccination rates 16 and over. Sometimes we see them 18 and over. Can you just clarify why we see different ones? And because I know the 16 and over is a higher rate. And why do we sometimes get different age rates?
Yeah, the different age rates have to do with where we're getting the data from. So when we get federal data, which tends to be more complete, that comes 18 and up.
Okay.
When we get our local county data, that you actually can slice almost any old way, but they frequently will do it 16 and up. So that's kind of where the discrepancy is.
Okay, thank you.
So they're just, just accurate numbers, just in slightly different buckets.
Okay. And then about COVID testing, when someone goes to their primary care provider, is there likely a charge for that? Do you know?
There's not a charge for the COVID test itself. There may be a charge for an office visit, depending upon, you might have a copay or something for your insurance. So it depends on people's insurance. Although that is a great question. Now I'm trying to remember if, I know that if you're seeing them for other things and you get a COVID test, the COVID test won't be charged. I'm trying to remember now if that is still accurate, that copays now can be charged. So I'll get back to you on that. I'll send you an email.
Okay, thank you. And my third is probably a little harder question. I don't know, but as our health officer, would you say that you are recommending that employers require masks and require vaccinations?
So as your health officer, I think that it is, it definitely depends on what your workforce is, what their physical situation is, and what they're doing, whether or not you would require your employees to wear masks. So you can consider if you have employees who maybe are at a place where they come literally face to face with the public and in hundreds of numbers, then the safest thing and the best way to protect their employees would be to require masks for patrons and for that. Same thing for vaccinations. Obviously, that's a sticky issue, and you can, in lieu of having people become vaccinated, having some sort of weekly testing system as a way to get around that. But that's what will, that's what will drive behavior. And the more people are vaccinated, the less chance this virus has to replicate and mutate more and continue to, be an issue in all of our lives. So that's a really incredibly effective tool that employers have. And I don't know that a lot of employers know that they have that tool. I think people think, well, it's under emergency use authorization. There's no way I can require it. And that's actually not correct. Employers can. So it depends on, again, what the situation is, what your workforce is, and who they're serving.
Thank you. And I think, it's just a good reminder that this isn't new practice for employers. Certainly as a registered nurse, I've always been required to have vaccinations to work in the hospital. And also think about our schools. Kids are required to have vaccinations. So this isn't a new thing. So just want to remind folks about that. So I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for being here today and for the excellent report as usual.
Sure.
All right, Commissioner Kramer, do you have any questions? No questions. Okay. I have a couple questions. There was a couple more in the chat. I'll go ahead and tag onto one of them. So one of them asked about, are most of the new cases random community spread, or are they linked to gatherings? And my question to tag onto that was, I heard a rumor. So I'm just asking you to either confirm or deny or tell me you don't know, but that the primary source of a lot of the high level activity that we've seen were a group of folks that went to a concert, came back to the community and had some other events and spread it in that way. Have you heard anything? And I only ask the question because I think those are the kind of ways, because we were doing really well for a long period of time, and all of a sudden just kind of a surprising number of cases already showed up and then started spreading. So
yeah, so I would say, so to the question of where are these cases coming from, it is kind of all across the board. We have had outbreaks in some of our long-term care facilities. We have outbreaks in some of our healthcare agencies. We've had outbreaks in restaurants. So there definitely are workplace outbreaks. There are definitely outbreaks associated with social gatherings. And then there's just sporadic outbreaks where people don't really know where they got it. So it's just a mix. I don't think that we would say that, oh gosh, that there was one concert and that's what did it. It's not like that. It's because it's so prevalent across the state and because it's so contagious, that it can kind of happen in a lot of different spaces.
okay.
I think, thanks, Roger Nichols, for those of you who can't see what's in the chat box. Roger Nichols put that 2 of the largest healthcare providers in the state, Kaiser and Peace Health, are requiring their employees to be vaccinated, despite an Oregon law that forbids that. Has MCMC made a similar requirement? Not to my knowledge yet. I don't know that if they're even in discussion, so I don't want to comment on that at all, but not that I've heard. And then Nicole, thank you so much for letting people know that for Wasco County staff, their insurance covers the COVID-19 test.
All right, a couple more questions. So masks, we've kind of, you got vaccinated, time goes on, and then you start getting used to not wearing masks. And I'm just curious, like now, where would you recommend, like if you go to the store, where should people think about wearing masks again?
Yeah, so that is a great question. So I would say, and I put out a little press release last week that I would really encourage people, if you're in an indoor public place, to wear a mask. So my mask is back on when I go to Freddy's. It's just the way it is. I don't really go a lot of places, so it's not such a big deal for me. But say, for example, if I were to attend a religious service or any other place where there are a lot of people, depending on the size of the building, and you're going to be in there for quite some time, I would absolutely wear a mask. I mean, if you're out, you're pumping gas at your car, do you need to put your mask on to step outside your car and pump your gas? I don't know that that's going to make a big difference, but it's really just, you have to think about the venue that you're in. If I were at Lollapalooza, where there are literally thousands of people and it's wall-to-wall bodies, even though it's outdoors, I would still wear a mask. So again, people kind of using your common sense, but if you are face-to-face or very close contact with people and you're either breathing their air right in front of you or you're rebreathing their air because you're all crammed in the same spot, I would definitely encourage people to wear a mask. And this is for vaccinated and unvaccinated people. It protects you and it protects others.
Okay, very good. So I was on a call earlier in the week or end of last week with the CDC director, and she was talking about breakthrough of fully vaccinated people. And I was trying to ask a question, but I wasn't able to do it. Do we know kind of what the breakthrough percentage has been? And one of the big concerns that she mentioned was, because people that are vaccinated, oftentimes you have this sense that you can go and do stuff, but she was saying that they're transmitting, they're finding that fully vaccinated people can be asymptomatic and actually transfer the virus pretty well.
Right. So, what we're finding, not surprisingly, is because, of course, as we know, the vaccines were never purported to be 100% effective. So they are somewhere in the upper 80s to 90% effective at preventing infections. So that means that there's going to be, 10 to 15 people in 100 who get it are going to be people who are fully vaccinated. And what they have found with this Delta variant that is different is because the viral load is so much higher. In other words, that thing replicates like a maniac, so much higher than sort of the OG COVID, that people who are vaccinated and have gotten infected with COVID-19 can indeed pass it on to others. And again, this is completely asymptomatic people. So I try and let people know that doesn't mean that the vaccines don't work. And it's certainly not a reason not to get it because it's not perfect. So don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. But they can transmit. And that's what really prompted the CDC to change its guidance and to say, you know what? We have more information. We are changing what we're recommending right now. We recommend that even vaccinated people wear masks when they're indoors in public places.
Okay, thanks. Another couple quick questions. How do you know that the Delta, I get a lot of questions, is the Delta variant in our county? And I don't know how to answer that question. It sounds like people say, well, we assume it's in there, but is there a test to determine if the Delta variant is here and that's the cause of it?
Yeah, so the way that the testing is run through the Oregon State Public Health Lab, again, some of the COVID-19 tests that are obtained are selected and are run through typing. So that's not either through the Oregon State Public Health Lab or a send out lab. So I as a public health officer or as a primary care provider, I couldn't say, hey, can we run this? I want to know if it's Delta. We don't have that capability. So in terms of what's happening in Wasco County, we've not had, there's a several week delay from when Wasco County, any of the counties, test samples get sent out until we get results. So even though the results from several weeks ago haven't shown the Delta variant here, with the ones that are all the way up throughout the state showing 90%, and in the United States, the pretty reasonable, this isn't a guess, it's a very, very reasonable assumption, is that yes, the Delta variant is present here, and that is what's causing, part of what's causing the increased transmission.
Okay, so we'll probably know that in the coming weeks, that there will be a random test selected and we'll say, is that true? Okay. Yes,
but I hope that people will just assume that it's here and behave accordingly, because certainly clinically what's important, it doesn't really matter what variant it is, the cases are up, but so clinically we need to behave that way.
Okay, very good. And the final question I had was, I got a question the other day. They asked if we, and I'm not sure who we was, but I'm assuming it was the health district, was helping develop a new COVID test or something like that. I didn't know how to answer that. I said, I don't know. I would talk to the public health department.
Yeah, actually. So through our partners at Oregon State, HSU, I know where I am, Oregon Health Sciences University, and an organization called ORPRIN, the Oregon, Public Rural Investigating Network, something like that. Anyway, through a couple of our institutions, they actually have been collecting samples to test a new platform that looks for COVID-19. So it is not run through Wasco County or North Central Public Health District, but they are, and it's great because they are doing research in rural Oregon to test the validity of this, to check on the validity of this testing platform. So people have been volunteering to be part of this study, which is fantastic, and we're really grateful. We're just grateful that they're out here, again, doing sort of real world testing in rural Oregon, which does not happen all that much. And I believe Nina's put out a press release or two about it. And then as we learn more, which, a lot of these studies take a long time to hear all of the answers back, but as we learn more, we absolutely will share them with everyone.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That was my final question. So we'll kind of open it up here if other folks have questions. We're behind time, obviously, and we have a public hearing that we're late for, but I want to make sure that people have an opportunity, the press or other folks, if they have a question they want to ask. Obviously, you could have done it in the chat, but if you couldn't or didn't, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question now. I'll give you just a couple seconds. Anyone? All right. Well, thank you, Dr. McDonald. We appreciate you being here. I guess we'll see how it goes in the coming weeks. My hope is that this thing will calm down and, we'll kind of get back to a better state of things, but we'll see. And we may be talking to you again.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity. Take care.
All right. Thanks for being here. All right. So we are going to apologize for those folks that are here for the public hearing on the Planning Commission, but we're going to move to our first item, which was scheduled at 9 o'clock. And unfortunately, for those of you that are here, you're going to have to listen to me read a lot of materials. And this is a new script that I don't think I've seen. So I'm not sure that I'm going to read it well, but we'll go ahead and start. We will now open the Board of Commissioners quasi-judicial hearing on agenda item 921-21-00009 PLNG, a subject to standards request decided upon by the Planning Commission for a subdivision to divide a 44.38 acre parcel into 8 lots ranging from 5 to 8.31 acres. Property involved is described as tax lot 40 or tax lot 4S 12E 14200. Account number is 11457. The criteria for approval of the land use decisions includes Chapter 2 Development Approval Procedures, Chapter 3 Basic Provisions, Section 3.650 Wamak Residential WAMR2 Zone, subsection 3.654.b, uses permitted subject to standards, type 2 review, partition, property line adjustments, and subdivisions subject to Chapter 21. Land divisions, section 3.656, property development standards, Chapter 10, fire standards, section 10.230, fire safety mitigation plan, Chapter 21, land divisions, section 21.030, basic provisions and design standards, section 21.200, and preliminary subdivision plan approval. The proposal must comply with the applicable provisions contained in the Wasco County Comprehensive Plan and state law, generally unless and otherwise noted. If a request is found to be consistent with the LUDO, it is considered consistent with the comprehensive plan. This will be a de novo hearing conducted as a new hearing before the public. New evidence or testimony will be accepted to fully and fairly address significant procedural or substantial issues raised. So I'm going to break there just for a second and ask Daniel, am I doing okay? Am I reading the right things?
You are reading the right thing.
All right, well, we'll continue on here. The procedure we're going to follow is there will be a disclosure of interest, ex parte contact, or potential conflicts. We'll be reading the rules of evidence. Planning department staff will present their report. The applicant or the owner will then have an opportunity to testify. Those who wish to speak in favor of the proposal, those who wish to speak in opposition to the proposal, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebuttal, and then questions by commissioners or staff, proponent or opponent. Then we'll close the hearing and the record and begin deliberation. Only the commissioners or staff will be participating in that part. So we'll start with the disclosure of interest. Does any commissioner wish to disqualify themselves for any personal or financial interest in this matter? Does any commissioner wish to report any significant ex parte or pre-hearing contacts? So that's the question, commissioners.
None for me.
No on both questions.
All right, none for me as well. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commissioners to hear this matter? You can unmute yourself and let us know. All right. Is there any member of the audience who wishes to question the jurisdiction of this body to act on behalf of Wasco County in this matter? Hearing nothing, we'll move on. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, for the record, have any commissioners conducted a site visit to the subject property? And if yes, tell us that you did and the substance of what you saw, who they talked to, and the substance of any conversations. Did any of the commissioners make a site visit to this lot?
I did not.
No.
Okay, and I did not as well. All right. Party recognition. Anyone can speak for or against the proposal today. However, only those who have, quote, party status will be able to appeal a decision reached by this commission. If you want party status, please say so at the beginning of your testimony. A party is defined in section 1.090 as the applicant and all owners or contract purchasers of record as shown in the files of the Wasco County Assessor's Office of the property which is subject to the application. B, all property owners of record as provided in A above within the notification area as described in section 2.080A2 of the property which is the subject of the application. C, a citizens advisory group pursuant to citizen involvement program approved pursuant to ORS 197.160. D is any affected unit of local government or public district or state or federal agency. And finally, E, any person or his representative who is specifically, personally, or adversely affected in the subject matter as determined by the approving authority. And in ORS 187.8307, Section B, as persons who appear before the local government, special district, or state agency orally or in writing. We'll move on to the rules of evidence are as follows. No person shall present irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious testimony or evidence. Evidence received shall be of a quality that reasonable persons rely on in the conduct of their daily affairs. The testimony and evidence must be directed towards the criteria applicable to the subject hearing or to the criteria that the party believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity may preclude raising it before the Land Use Board of Appeals. Failure to raise a constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow Wasco County to respond to the issue precludes the action for damages in the circuit court. Will the staff now present their report? Daniel.
Thank you, Charity. 1 second. All right, my name is Daniel Doherty. I am the reviewing associate planner for this specific appeal hearing and appeal request. Brent Bybee was the original staff reviewer for the initial application for the subdivision. We'll go ahead and just move on in. All right, so this hearing involves a request for the approval of the Pine Ridge preliminary subdivision plan to divide a 44.38 acre parcel into 8 lots ranging from 5 to 8.35 acres. So the originally planned 1.08 acre park was removed from the initial plan. It wasn't removed from the original notice of decision, but the finalized subdivision plat will actually reflect that fact. The subject parcel is located at 4 South, 12 East, Section 14, Tax Lot 200. In accordance with the underlying zone, the proposed subdivision is being reviewed subject to standards per the Wasco County Land Use and Development Ordinance, Chapter 2, Development Procedures. The preliminary subdivision request was originally brought before the Planning Commission in a quasi-judicial review hearing, where the preliminary subdivision plan with conditions of approval was approved on June 1st, 2021. The notice of decision was issued on June 3rd, 2021, with an appeal date ending on June 15th, 2021. A request for a de novo appeal hearing for the Wasco County Board of Commissioners was properly received and processed on June 11th, 2021. As provided on the submitted appeal form, the reason for the appeal is to contest condition of approval number 6 within the notice of decision, requiring the developer to make improvements to and maintain Immigrant Road. So this hearing is going to briefly cover down on the subject area, and then we're going to go ahead and dive right on into the issue on appeal. So as you can see from this vicinity map, the subject parcel, as well as all parcels that are adjacent to the north of the subject parcel, are within the Womack residential Womack R2 zone. Parcels located south and east are within the exclusive farm use A1 zone, and parcels to the west are a combination of Womack residential R2, as well as Womack medium industrial, Womack commercial, and EFU zones. This is a copy of the preliminary Pine Ridge subdivision plan. As you can see that lots 1 through 7 range from 5 to 5.2 acres. They'll be served by Homestead Road to the south. And then the subject lot of this appeal is lot 8. It's the largest lot at 8.35 acres. It'll be served by Immigrant Road, or Immigrant Street as it's called. So moving on to property development standards very briefly. Property development standards include maximum height, proposed signage, proposed setbacks, as well as property size. Since the newly proposed lots will not be served by either an approved community, municipal, or public water system, or an approved community or public sewage system, the lots are required to be at least 5 acres in size with a minimum width of 300 feet. The lots must also demonstrate that they can meet Department of Environmental Quality on-site sewage disposal rules in effect. Staff finds that the preliminary plan meets the property size requirement and has recommended a condition of approval stating that objective proof of meeting the DEQ on-site sewage disposal rules shall be provided prior to submitting the final subdivision plat for approval. All other property development standards have either been found to be outright met or met with conditions of approval or found to be inapplicable to this request. All right, so we're going to move right on into the issue on appeal, which involves Chapter 21 land divisions, specifically subsection 21.030L. Chapter 21 deals with design standards, specifically roads. The specific criterion that provides the county authority to require that a developer widen an existing road is found within subsection 21.030L. This subsection provides that, open quote, whenever existing streets adjacent to or within a tract are of inadequate width, additional right-of-way shall be provided at the time of the subdivision or partitioning, end quote. So the original staff report concerning this subsection presented to the Planning Commission on June 1st, 2021 provided, open quote, Immigrant Street and Homestead Road are projected to have 25 to 250 average daily trips, classifying them as both rural local roads in accordance with Table 21.1, rural Wasco County Public Roadway Design Standards. This information was confirmed with Arthur Smith, the director of the Wasco County Public Works Department, by email on April 28, 2021, end quote. Additionally, Director Smith commented that both Immigrant and Homestead roads are, quote, public roads of local access, so they will not be maintained by the county, end quote. Further findings provided that Immigrant Road serves 7 existing properties located to the north and will also serve Lot 8, and of course the proposed park, which has been nixed from this plan. In order to ensure the Immigrant Road can meet the road design standards that are required when the public road's average daily trips fall between 25 and 250, a condition of approval was included in the original notice of decision that provides that Immigrant Road shall meet the design standards for rural local roads with an ADT of 25 to 250, specifically those standards that are illustrated in this table, either unpaved or paved. And further, that it will be the responsibility of the developer if any improvements to Immigrant Road must occur. Additionally, the condition provided that, quote, maintenance of Immigrant Road will not be the responsibility of Wasco County. Prior to submittal of the final subdivision plat for approval, a plan for road maintenance on Immigrant Road shall also be developed and presented as part of the request, end quote. Criteria, so essentially what we have is if the applicant was to request for a dwelling on the existing 44-acre parcel, okay, it's zoned R2. The purpose of the zone is, of course, for residential use. And we could likely, depending on the location, we can likely approve a dwelling request in that zone on the 44-acre parcel under a type 1 permit, what we call a ministerial permit. Of course, if the applicant was to apply for a dwelling on the 44-acre parcel, we don't have any mechanism under that type of request to require Immigrant Street or Homestead Road to be improved. Where we get this mechanism is explicitly in our land division chapters, right? So specifically under 21.030L. This request, of course, is for a subdivision to create 8 lots. So the specific issue on appeal, a request for a de novo appeal was properly received and processed by the planning department. Grounds for the appeal were provided by the appellants and can be found on page 249 of the Wasco County Board of Commissioners hearing packet. The appellant provides the following, I'll just quote, the appeal requests the review of condition of approval 6 as approved by the Planning Commission. Immigrant Street currently serves multiple dwellings as well as the community of Wamex Sanitary Services. The proposed subdivision would create the possibility of only one additional dwelling to be served by the street. The street adequately serves the current uses and any additional traffic generated by an additional dwelling. If improvements to Immigrant Street are deemed necessary, this should not be the sole responsibility of the applicant, end quote. So it's also important that that's the only information that has been provided to the planning department since the appeal was filed. So on July 21st, 2021, staff contacted the Wasco County Public Works Department Director Arthur Smith for additional clarification and expert commentary on road width standards and projected average daily trip calculations. So regarding the projected ADT for immigrant and homestead roads, Director Smith provided the following, quote, the estimated ADT is based on projected trips generated per household or potential households. I tend to be very conservative with this number and use around 4 trips per day for our rural areas. This number is less than half of the statewide trip rate of 8.9. Director Smith also provided a link to this 2019 ODOT report, Personal Travel in Oregon, a snapshot of daily household travel patterns. I've also provided a quote from one of the pages within the study. But further information can be found on pages 49, 56, and 89 of the submitted packet.
Chair
So
Nagy.
importantly, road width is driven by ADT. So Director Smith further added, quote, if a lot can be divided.
Hey, Daniel, can you stop for a second?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Steve?
Yeah, just some clarity. Daniel, you talked about developer and you talked about applicant. Are they the one and the same as we're referring to all of this? Just for clarification.
Yes, sir. I mean, if the applicant decides to go ahead and hire a prime contractor to do whatever, ultimately the applicant and or the developer will be responsible for that improvement. Now, where the money comes from, it's always going to come from the applicant, of course, the person who's actually wanting to develop this subdivision.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
So Director Smith further added, quote, if a lot can be divided into multiple lots, then I would estimate the potential ADT for the full build out. This has been part of the problem in Wasco County with over 105 miles of public roads of local access that were never constructed to standard. The initial build was minimal, and then later lots were divided, more homes were built, more ADT generated, but the road was never improved. Unfortunately, Immigrant Street is a great example of this. For our standards, the roadway width is driven by ADT. A road that is projected to have 25 to 250 ADT needs to be constructed to a greater width than a road projected to serve less than 25 ADT. And so this standard is the standard of 21030 L is fairly straightforward. It says that if the road needs to be widened, then the developer, in this case the applicant, shall be the one responsible for it. So as illustrated on the Pine Ridge subdivision preliminary plat, lot 8 contains possible future lot lines, which you can see. Now, it's also important to remember that the Wameck residential R2 zone subsection 3.656A allows lots to be 2 acres in size if they are served by either an approved community, municipal, or public water system, or an approved community or public sewage system. Now, in this case, it's not, but again, the property development standards allow these lots to be smaller than the 5 acres that they're being proposed at, if they can be served by a community sewer in the future. So additional staff analysis provides an Immigrant Road currently serves at least 8 tax lots and 6 registered addresses with physical development. Now, this might slightly differ from the original staff report as well as the staff report provided within the packet. I've been able to do additional analysis since the time the packet was actually issued. All of the parcels are directly served by Immigrant Road. They're within the Wamak residential zone. As you can see on the map, the dashed line represents the parcel that is technically not served by Immigrant Road. There's a registered address that appears to be served by an easement coming from Immigrant Road. I haven't been able to confirm if that address is an actual dwelling unit, but we know it's a registered address. So using the conservative 4 average daily trips per developable unit of land, so this is not household, this is just a developable unit of land, the existing ADT for Immigrant Road is approximately 32 average daily trips. So it's just 4 ADT times 8 parcels, 32 ADT. Using the existing 6 just registered addresses served by Immigrant Road, you have 24 ADT. Now, again, I haven't necessarily been able to confirm if the address that's served by the easement is in fact a dwelling unit. Now, using the 8.9 average daily trips cited in the ODOT study and counting only those addresses directly served by Immigrant Road, where the address has actually been confirmed to be a dwelling by the assessor's office. I was able to confirm that through their Ascend database. You're looking at roughly 44.5 average daily trips. Now, if we use the conservative 4 average daily trips, you're looking at about 20 average daily trips that Immigrant Road is currently serving. So based on this analysis, staff's recommended action is to retain condition 6. And I'm going to go ahead and read it for the record. Quote, Immigrant Street shall meet the design standards for rural local roads with an ADT of 25 to 250, specifically the standards located in Table 21.1 Rural Wasco County Public Roadway Design Standards and Chapter 21 of the Wasco County Land Use and Development Ordinance. It will be the responsibility of the developer if any improvements to Immigrant Street must occur. Maintenance of this road will not be the responsibility of Wasco County. Prior to submittal of the final subdivision plat for approval, a plan for road maintenance on Immigrant Street shall also be developed and presented as part of the request. And finally, staff recommends the approval of the preliminary subdivision plan as submitted by the applicant to subdivide the 44.38 acre parcel into 8 lots ranging from 5 to 8.35 acres with the condition that the park be removed from the plan and the acreage added to the adjacent lots. And I open it up for questions.
All right, very good. Commissioners, this is our opportunity to ask questions of staff. And Daniel, just so it's clear, we can ask questions of you or Arthur, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So commissioners, any questions at this point? Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you. Just for clarification, so if this 8-acre parcel in the future were to be divided into RR2 lots, would that just be a ministerial review as well, and the subdivision standard would not apply at that time? Is my question. Does that make sense, Daniel?
Yes, Commissioner. No, if let's say in the future lot 8 was to be further subdivided, we would review it for the most part the exact same way we're reviewing it here, with chapter 21 standards being applicable.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have anything else, Kathy?
Not right this second.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. How about you, Steve?
Not at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. So in looking, obviously Immigrant Road is an existing road, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the condition basically is requiring it to be enhanced, upgraded, widened. What exactly is going to have to happen to that road to comply?
It will have to meet Table 21 standards, either unpaved or paved. And in meeting that standard, it will be widened, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I
And
had to
I
wrap
have-
my head around that too. That's why I had to go get Arthur on that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, in looking at the road, and I haven't been out there on that road, but it looks to be a moderately decent road. And I wasn't sure if the condition of it or just the width was the issue.
Well, the conditions draw, or the requirement to improve it because of the ADT projections will require it to be widened.
Okay, so the primary issue is widening of that road.
Yes. The criteria explicitly says if the road needs to be widened, then the developer shall widen it.
Okay.
And of course, asking Director Smith, well, how do we determine whether it needs to be widened or not? It's based on ADT. If the ADT goes up to between 25 and 250, then the standards with which that road is built to must be improved, which will necessitate widening it, from my understanding.
Okay, do we know how wide it will need to be widened?
I don't believe so at this point.
Okay.
No.
Well, maybe we'll hear about that from the applicant. Okay. And another question I had was, it's in the appeal, it noted that there are other property owners that get access on that road. And my question was, are there other options for basically doing the road work? And I'm asking because oftentimes there's local improvement districts or LIDs, and typically, all property owners adjacent to a road would then participate in the funding of that. So is that not a option in this case, or how does that play into this? Are there other options to fund this than just having the developer fund this portion?
Well, I would imagine that's more of a private contract between the developer and neighboring parcels. And with regards to the land use criteria, it simply says that if the road needs to be widened, the developer shall widen it. Now, if the developer can go out and get private agreements from other parcel owners to say, hey, will you help us maintain and widen this road for the benefit of everybody in this community? That would very much be an option on that side of the house. But just with regards to this criteria, it simply says that the developer will widen it.
Okay. And maybe Arthur, I think you're with us. I'm just curious because I know, like in the cities, like in the city of the Dalles, I know oftentimes they mandate local improvement districts, I think, and property owners have to pay even if they don't want to pay. And I didn't know if that's a specific city authority / provision or something in their Ludo, or how that plays out. Kelly, did you have a response?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for recognizing me, Chair. For the record, Kelly House, Legal Interim Planning Director. I'll just say that Wasco County doesn't currently have those mechanisms that you're familiar with in city, but actually as part of our Ludo update this year to update Chapter 21, we are proposing a system that'll be more familiar and will allow us the flexibility to create improvement districts for the maintenance and improvement of roads. So we don't have that capability now based on the way the rules are written, but we're hoping to allow for that in the future.
Okay, very good. Thanks. I just was curious about that. Arthur, since I see you, I have a quick question. Do we have a sense of the additional width of the road that's going to be required based on what's out there today?
Yeah, Scott, I'm having so audio wise, some people are kind of coming in funky, so hopefully my audio is working. Hope it's not on my end. Arthur Smith, Public Works Director for Wasco County. So I was out looking at a permit for a different job, and I actually took an opportunity to drive out on Immigrant Road. Yeah, it's actually, I mean, it's not the condition of the existing facility, it's that it is, I'm just applying the standard, right? So the standard is a 22-foot wide traveled way, and Immigrant does not have a 22-foot wide traveled way throughout. So it's more like 17 or probably 18. You could meet the 18, but it does not have 22. So that's literally, it's just applying the standard. And that's it. So
okay, so it sounds like it's in rough terms widening it by 3 to 4 feet, something to that effect.
Right, and I did not I didn't go out there and shoot any topo. Whether there's cuts and fills involved, it was just a quick looky-loo. So
okay, very good. All right, that's all the questions I had. Okay, Kathy, you have another question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just need some clarification, Arthur or Daniel. So with the plan we have in front of us today, what exactly is the ADT data? Is it, and that's Arthur's projections of 4 trips a day for the current people that are using it, as well as for lot 8 to be developed?
I can hit this unless you want to, Arthur. So if we use the conservative estimate, just for households alone, right? You're looking at 5 registered dwelling units, houses. So that would be 4 times 5 is 20. So that's 20 ADT, average daily trips total. Now, if I get my math mixed up, somebody go ahead and correct me on this. If we're using just lots served, right, there are approximately 8 lots that are served. So 4 times 8, that's 24. Or I'm sorry, 4 times 8, 32. So and of course the 2019 ODOT study projected 8.9 average daily trips.
All right. Did that answer your question, Kathy?
I guess I would just ask, is there, is it proposed just one dwelling on this 8 acres at this time?
There's no dwelling proposed at this time, but the lot is of course in a residential zone designed for residential use. Could it be further divided in the future? Yes. Could a potential buyer purchase the property and place a dwelling unit on that parcel? Yes.
Okay. And just a, sorry, I just have,
okay.
So when we talk about the ADT, in relationship to the lots that are available, and outside of the subdivision, for instance, that currently do not have dwellings, those could actually get dwellings on them, right?
Lots outside of the proposed, there are 3 vacant parcels from my research, 2 on the north side of Immigrant Road and 1 on the south side. They're in R2, or Womack R2 zone. 2 of them are in the flood zone, but that doesn't necessarily preclude development. And then the parcel on the south side of Immigrant Road is, of course, substandard. I think it's like 1.4 acres or something. Technically, I haven't done the in-depth research, but technically, yes, it is a developable parcel. So there are at least 3 vacant lots.
Okay.
That could potentially have a dwelling unit residential development.
Okay. And those lots would not be subject to the subdivision standard in relationship to the road, correct?
Correct. As stated earlier during my presentation, if you're requesting a dwelling unit for an existing lot, we don't necessarily have a mechanism to require you through our chapters, through the underlying chapters, which would primarily be chapters 3 and chapters 10, our fire safety standards. We don't have any mechanism to require a developer or an applicant to improve Immigrant Road or Homestead Road for that matter. It's once you actually divide the land.
Okay, thank you. That's all for now.
All right. So one of those 3 lots, Daniel, is this lot that's 8.35 acres being created. Is that one of the 3 lots?
Let me see if I can share my screen again. That way,
Okay.
I've got a map. Let's see. Oh, gosh darn it. So as you can see, 2 undeveloped lots on the far east side, outlined in orange, and then there's 1 lot that is on the south side in orange. The blue, what's highlighted in blue, is the current parcel as it exists today, the 44 acres.
Okay.
So technically there are 4 developable parcels, if you will, right now. After the subdivision, you'll have lot 8. You'll have the lots surrounded in orange on the south side, and you'll have the other 2 lots on the north side of Immigrant Street.
Okay. And is the lot that's 1.06, which was identified as a park, is that still part of is that a lot, or is that not part of the subdivision?
From my understanding, that will be the 1.08 acre park will be the acreage will be given to the other proposed lots.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily explicitly clear in the original staff report.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions.
Oh, Chair Hagee, while the map is up, oh, sorry, Daniel.
Oh, no, give me 1 second.
Yeah. Sorry.
What?
Yeah, what is the square inside the blue that's outlined by orange?
That is one of the developable parcels that I was talking about earlier. So there are, technically, if you exclude the subject parcel highlighted in blue, there are 3 developable parcels within this general area.
Ah.
If you add the 44 acre parcel as a developable parcel in and of itself, there are technically 4.
Daniel, it's a cemetery in there though.
Is it? Okay. So
Yeah,
it's not developable.
Not developable.
Right.
That's the old pioneer
Okay. So
cemetery.
we have 2 developable parcels. That solves a lot of problems. On the eastern side of this area.
Okay. All right. We get a cemetery there. All right. Very good. No other questions from the commission? And we're moving on to the applicant and or representatives. Do you guys have anything you wish to present? And if you could just go ahead and state your name and address for the record, and then we'll do that and then see if the commission has questions after that.
Thanks, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Kirk Fatland. I work with Tennyson Engineering. Our address here is 3755 Crates Way here in the Dalles, and I'm with Austin Justison, the applicant.
Yep, Austin Justison, I'm the applicant, 81491 Fairgrounds Road in Ty Valley.
All right, welcome, gentlemen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
I'm going to try to share my screen here and do a brief presentation.
Okay.
It looks like it's disabled, but
okay, we can get that abled. Can we, Kathy?
Thank you. And while we're doing that,
should be good to go.
Thank you. All right, amateur hour here. Can you folks see that?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. And let's make it bigger. Cool. So as Daniel mentioned, and I guess first of all to mention that both him and Brent have done an awesome job on this. They put together a great staff report at the beginning, and it was approved by the Planning Commission. There's 13 conditions on there that all make perfect sense to us. There's one that we are asking for a slight modification on, and that's what this hearing is about, basically. Condition 6 that he explained earlier about Immigrant Street. So this is rather blurry now that I'm seeing it. The idea here is to show these first 7 lots along what will be Homestead Road has been built up to county spec by by the applicant. It didn't exist before. All these lots are proposed to be developed here in the near future. These 7. Lot 8 that we're talking about along Emigrant Street is basically a remainder. It's a leftover portion. No development is proposed there. It is able to be broken up into 2-acre parcels, but it would have to be served by the Wamak Water and Sewer, which is not going to serve those. It doesn't have the capacity. So that was actually part of that the original proposal by the applicant. And those, I think Daniel showed a slide showing the possible lot lines, and that's a lot what it looked like, honestly. But since it can't be served by Wamak Water and Sewer, it's not a reality. It won't be broken up into those pieces. So that's why that lot isn't really part of the development plan, or not part of the development plan at all, if that makes sense. So these, just to reiterate, so these front 7 lots along Homestead Road will be the lots that are part of a development plan, and they don't have access to Emigrant Street, only along Homestead Road. And so this is zoomed in a bit. It shows the cemetery there, as well as the dwellings that do exist. The parcel that they were showing earlier that's further to the east is actually, it's not a dwelling, it's a pump house for the Wamak sewer, and they have other sanitary infrastructure up there as well. So Wamak uses this quite frequently for their critical city infrastructure. And then obviously the people across the street use Immigrant Street as well. And it of course adequately serves them currently. So this is the condition that you all saw, asking it to be improved and then maintained in perpetuity by this one particular developer. But you have already seen that. So our reasons essentially are: the proposal does not increase the development potential along Emigrant Street. Right now, as Daniel mentioned, you could put a house there. The owner could put a home right there, and it would not create any more. It could create all those potential trips that were brought up. If this subdivision happens, it does not increase those. As that 44-acre parcel sits right now, if that home went there, those potential trips would happen, and that same amount of trips would happen if it's divided. There's no more potential increase in traffic there after this subdivision. So obviously we agree with everything Arthur's calculated for potential trips, but we're not increasing it to that level. So that's the main point. The subdivision plans for development is really those 7 lots. There is no plan to put anything on those on that lot there at the bottom. And also, of course, the existing street does serve those uses currently. There's not a lot of traffic happening right there. I will go back real quick actually to point out that if you look on the left of the screen at the very end of the parcel here, you can see sort of a road snaking into the property. That if a home were to be sited, that's where it would be. It would be at the beginning of the road. It's the only buildable area. It's very steep. So essentially, our main point is that it does not increase the development. It does not increase traffic potential there. A house could go there today, and it would not change. So we do understand where you all are coming from, and where the planning commission was on this, that you do have to plan for the future. And as Dana pointed out, technically this could be broken up into other parcels and have multiple lots there. Right now, that's not a reality because of the limitations of Wamak Water and Sewer. And we are asking for a slight modification, which we'll show here shortly. So this is condition of approval number 6. With everything we've added, a few words in 8. We're proposing to have this be altered to say if lot 8 were to be subdivided, as was mentioned in the staff report, that is possible. At that point, the developer would happily develop that street if it were to be used, or further developed, or further subdivided, excuse me. So we're not asking to get rid of this condition at all. It makes sense that if you did have 4 lots or so down there, of course, because there would be an increase in traffic. But as it stands, what we're proposing does not increase any potential for traffic. So it seems inappropriate to do it now, but it does make sense, of course, to do it later. So we're asking for a modification of one of the 13 conditions to say that we would certainly do this if we were to increase the potential for traffic, which we aren't as a result of this subdivision. And I'll kick a toss and add anything if you'd like.
Yeah. So like I said, Austin Justison, I'm the applicant. I think what Kirk's trying to say is if we weren't doing the subdivision with the 44-acre lot and we wanted to build a house on that 44-acre lot, we could access Immigrant Street and you guys, there would be we wouldn't have to improve the street, do anything like that. We could build a house there. So essentially we've got the development up top. We spent the money, we built a nice county spec road and that services the 7 lots. Now, if somebody was to buy that lower lot and put a house on that buildable corner, there's an existing road that already goes there to goes up the hill to the old Womack TV tower. I don't think it's going to make any impact, but like I said, regardless, we'd just like to move forward with this.
All right, thank you. Why don't we go ahead before we go to questions from the commission? If we could just ask Kirk, if you could send your presentation to us just for the record, we'll include it in our minutes. So if you could somehow send that to us, we would appreciate it. Is that possible?
Yeah, can I do that afterwards? Is that all right?
Absolutely. Yep, no problem. We just want to include it as part of the record.
Scott, I've got one more, just so everybody's clear, I've got one more point. So when we first started this development, I went to the city of Womack because that lot that you're looking at, that 8 acres there along the hill around the cemetery, it is very steep. But our entire plan with the development was to try to do smaller lots. So we were going to hook into Womack City Sewer and City Water. They don't have the capacity. They're not going to have the capacity. I mean, in the future, if they get a big grant or something and somebody goes in there and helps the sewer, that's one thing. But we even offered to donate, to hook our well into the city water to help get more. They just don't have the capacity, the storage, anything like that. So that's how we kind of abandoned. You can see those old lot lines that were in there on the picture that Daniel showed. But that's why we abandoned that. There's no capacity.
All right, very good. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the folks that have joined us here?
Yes.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, just a second. I want to get my view back here.
Okay.
But I want to give Commissioner Kramer, did you have questions?
You can go ahead.
Okay. So is it not possible though to create your own water system, like community water system for 4 or 5 lots and your own community sewer system?
No, not with 2-acre lots, I believe municipal.
And maybe Dan knows better, but that probably is a condition I would assume of doing those 2-acre lots in that zone.
What is the answer, Daniel? I'm sorry.
Would be, sorry, I had to get it would be. In order to divide these lots to 2 acres, they have to have a community sewage system or a water system.
So my question is, if the Womack sewer system and water system doesn't have capacity, can that 4 lots have capacity on their own to drill their own well, have a small community water system, and have their own community sewer system?
I know.
Okay.
And again, I'm not an engineer, so that's a very technical question. I mean, but I would.
Okay.
I'd have to defer to an expert on that, but
I guess the overarching question is that the only option to develop those lots would be to hook up to the Womack sewer and water system.
At present time, yes, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And then I don't know the proper procedure, Chair Hagee, so you can direct me, but at some point I'd like staff to comment on the recommendation that the appellants put forward.
Sure. Well, I think we'll come back to a discussion and deliberation where we can ask questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Kramer.
Yeah, I think this would be for staff in the Planning Commission, and I didn't see it in our packet, the discussion that the commission and staff had around condition 6. I noticed that the vote was unanimous all the way through, but was there any discussion on this particular line, number 6, that any of the commissioners had any questions on that might have raised the red flag that brought about this appeal?
With regards to staff, Commissioner Kramer, and I wasn't privy to the original Planning Commission hearing, but from my understanding, I didn't see anything in the minutes. I didn't take a really deep dive into the minutes, but I don't recall seeing anything in the minutes. Perhaps Kurt can explain a little bit more on that.
Yeah, Commissioner, it didn't come up. It was sort of a surprise to us. We had discussed them throughout the process. Of course, we've been talking to the planners and the public works director about this. And this came up sort of last minute. And so sort of why the appeal as opposed to a discussion at the Planning Commission. Yeah, we were also working out the park situation where we ended up, the applicant is paying the required fee instead of providing the park. So that was more the focus of the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
So maybe just a follow-up and clarification to that. So it sounds like this revised number 6 was developed after that. The Planning Commission didn't talk about it. So this is new to everyone.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. All right. Any other questions for these folks?
I've got one more quick point.
Yeah.
Scott, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So just to clarify too, as far as the road width on Immigrant and increasing that width, it's not just width. The specs for a road, for a county road are, I mean, they're pretty strict, and we followed those when we built Homestead Road. I mean, we'd have to, I've got a bid from the guy that built Homestead Road to fix up Immigrant Road, and it's another 100,000. So it's not just taking a blade and making it 3 or 4 feet wider. We've got to bring that whole road to spec. And anyway, like I said, you know, in the future, if Womack something happened, you know, and they got some grant, we were going to break that up. Like I said, it's really steep anyway. I mean, the only really buildable spot as it sits now is right there in that corner. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that it's not just going in there and widening the road.
Okay, thanks.
And Arthur knows that. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good expense.
And our condition is written the way it is, not suggesting nixing it at all, because yeah, the community does need to protect themselves for future development, and they'll have that mechanism again if it is brought up to be further subdivided. So okay. It's not leaving anyone hanging out to dry.
All right, very good. If there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next section, which is, are there any persons who wish to speak in favor of the request? And if there are, if you could state your name and address for the record, we will do that. So anybody in the meeting here today, you have an opportunity to speak up in favor of this request. All right, we're going to be gone. Okay. So then we will go to the next section, which is, are there any persons who wish to speak in opposition to the request? And if so, could you state your name and address for the record? All right, we're going to gone. Okay, nobody for or against. All right, does the applicant or the representative wish to rebut any of the testimony we didn't hear? Or any final words? All right.
We just, I think this is going to be a really good thing for Walmart and a really good thing for Wasco County. That's, you know, people want to buy property out here.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Austin. All right. Does the commission have any other questions for anyone, including staff? And I think Kathy, you said you had a question.
Yeah, I do. And one is just clarifying question. So what I think I heard earlier in response to Commissioner Kramer's question was that the Planning Commission did not have this discussion around this road. I mean, I didn't see anything in the packet. They did not have a similar discussion around this, correct?
Commissioner, from my understanding, no, if that question was directed towards staff.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't believe so, and I wasn't privy to the original hearing, and just from the minutes I have reviewed, no, I don't believe so.
And it just, Kathy, just so for the record, so the applicant is who was at the hearing, Daniel was not, said there was no discussion of that. So
we were under the impression most of the time that we needed to build the upper road, the access road to the upper lots, and then this last meeting we had, they found the language in there that any road touching the development needs to be up to spec, and that's when we submitted the RFP. But yes, throughout the entire process, we have just planned on building Homestead Road and using Immigrant to access that lower lot because it doesn't touch Homestead.
Okay. And then I was curious if staff would like to comment on the recommended alteration to condition 6.
One of the issues with the criteria that condition is based on is it's very black and white. If the road needs to be widened, then it shall be widened by the developer. I think I would probably have to confer with the director as to whether or not that proposed condition is even possible, just with regards to the kind of the black and white criteria. If it needs to be widened, it shall be widened. I definitely we would definitely have to have time to consider it. Perhaps the director wants to comment right now, but it's a fairly black and white criteria. If it needs to be widened, the developer shall widen it. So, and really it's just about whether or not the ADT is or will be met with this newly proposed lot. If that ADT is met between 25 and 250, then it needs to be widened. I know that wasn't a direct answer, but it was kind of a roundabout answer to that question.
But again, if we were just to not develop this property and build a house right there in that buildable spot, we would not be required to do anything with the road. And that's the only thing that can happen. One house can be built there no matter what. Whereas it's built in the subdivision or if it's built on the whole 43 acres. But in one case, we have to widen the entire road, and in the other case, we don't have to do anything. And we're adding the same amount of traffic either way.
As stated earlier in the presentation, if the 44 acres is developed today, it could be developed under a type 1 ministerial review, likely, depending on the location and any overlays that might overlay zones that might be applicable. But we wouldn't have the mechanism within the land use ordinance to require the road to be widened. It's that mechanism is only created once a subdivision or a partition request has been submitted, in which this case, it's not necessarily a application for physical development. It's an application for subdivision development or partition development in this case, in which case this criterion applies.
Which makes sense to us for sure. And I think that's why we wrote the condition how we did, to say that so when the subdivision happens that would increase the average daily trips, then it would make sense to implement it. That's because that definitely makes sense. That seems like that's a good time to require it. But the next one would make more sense to us.
Okay, so why don't we, Kelly, I don't know if you can chime in here and maybe Arthur as well.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as Daniel mentioned, the triggers for improving roadways are the only mechanism, the only trigger that we have for that is related to land divisions, and that's consistent with state law and also other jurisdictions. So that's not unusual for an existing lot not to be triggered to improve the road, but for any land divisions. It's just the way we do planning in Oregon, particularly with road access ways. So this is not unusual. It's not unique to Wasco County. It's consistent with state law, and it's consistent with common practice in rural counties all over Oregon. As Daniel mentioned, this is a black and white criteria that staff evaluates. Planning Commission does have the ability to have more discretion than staff does. We base our recommendations on what's black and white. And we have because we've gone through a revision of this chapter recently and had our consulting land use attorney, Chris Crean, review the criteria, we've been advised to continue to stick to very black and white criteria as related to land divisions, because it does have an impact on housing and housing. There are some specific triggers in the housing rules and the Oregon revised statutes and administrative rules that require clear and objective standards. So it's a pass-fail test. So staff, when they evaluate these kinds of things, it's consistent with that pass-fail test. So again, staff's recommendation has to be based on clear and objective criteria, which is what Daniel and Director Smith are presenting.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? So as proposed, lot 8 would be one lot adjacent to that. If they want to subdivide in the future lot 8, would they not need to go through a land use process to do that?
Yes, Commissioner. It would be the same process, well, either a partition process or a subdivision process. Yes.
Okay, so in terms of
process.
Okay, so I mean, they couldn't come in and go through some land use process that wouldn't allow the opportunity to make the same requirement as a condition in the future. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Arthur, I don't know if you want to answer Kathy's question.
Sorry, Commissioner Schwartz, if you could repeat. I guess, like I said, I have no skin in the game here. I'm just applying the standards, and I'm trying to use my engineering discretion. Like I said, I feel really good about my discretion with regards to ADT here in Wasco County. I hate it. ODOT paid a lot of money to a big consultant, and they got a good number, right? That 8.9 is a terrific statewide average, and I don't know for WAMIC or for anything else, whether it's good for us. So that's why I use my engineering discretion as the designated road official to drop the ADT down to more like 4. But I'm just applying the standard, though. I'm not trying to pick winners and losers. I'm just saying, when you ask me the question, does 8 times 4, is that number higher than 25? Then the standard is A. If that number is lower than 25, the standard is B. So that's just my professional hat. And I'm not sure, Commissioner Schwartz, if that was actually answered your question or not.
Yeah, I just was asking for a staff comment, so thank you.
All right, other questions? I saw Kristen. Kristen, I don't know if you were wanting to make some comment or not.
No, sorry.
Okay, no problem. All right, let me get back to my script here again. So do we have any other questions at this time? Did you have anything else, Steve?
Well, maybe a question or clarification. Now that the park is been removed and the percentage of assessed value is being paid, which I truly appreciate, because now we're not going to have another steep park that we can't develop or do anything with. Editorial comment there. But that, to me, eliminates some of the traffic on this road. And so I guess if we were to consider this modification, do we need to procedurally for our public hearing, do we need to then again or extend the public hearing for more information, or can we just modify this today as this public hearing that under the de novo procedure? Are we good to just make a decision today and move forward, or do we need to extend, I guess is my question.
All right, Kelly or Daniel.
Well, you can either, and Kelly, just tell me if I'm wrong, but you can either make the decision today or request a continuance
Okay.
for additional information. I could be wrong procedurally.
So we have the authority to make a decision today. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay,
Hey,
thank you.
Kirk, could you stop sharing your screen?
Yes, of course. You tired of looking at my blurry picture?
No, not at all. But it's like
There we go.
everybody ends up on a different screen, and then
Yes.
I'm trying to look at two things. So
No, good call.
yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Let's see. Other questions? If not, we are going to we're going to close the hearing. We're going to close. Okay, so we are going to close if there's no further testimony or questions, the public hearing is now closed and the commission will enter into deliberation. All right, we're in deliberation. Welcome to deliberation. So the Board of Commissioners may ask questions of staff or just comment at this time, and then we would move to a motion. So does anybody have any thoughts at this point?
Well, thank you, Chair. Again, I'm really pleased that the park was taken care of and removed. So we've seen this in the past, and pleased to see that the applicant chose to do so. And so thank you very much for that. And I think that this modification is a reasonable request with the guarantee if the development happens on lot 8, then the developer applicant will bring that road up to standards. And I think that pretty reasonable request. Wish we could have dealt with this ahead of time. I think that the Planning Commission would have also potentially agreed with my thought. And so I'll just leave it there for the two of you to comment. And I think this is well thought out, and appreciate the applicant moving forward, especially in the time of the housing issues that we're having. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Steve. Just to follow up on that, it seems like the changing the condition doesn't necessarily require, I guess maybe a question for Kelly, the condition itself wouldn't require this improvement of the road, but if they did come back and subdivide that road or subdivide that lot 8, then that would be part of the process and part of the decision, even if condition 6 didn't exist. Is that correct?
I'm going to ask for feedback from Daniel because he reviewed this more carefully.
Okay. I'm like, let me ask a quick question before that. Kelly, yourself or Daniel were not at the hearing anyway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So all of the staff that was at the hearing is no longer employed by, okay, all right.
That's correct.
All right, thanks. So Daniel, I'm just really trying to make sure that, so regardless of whether a condition 6 is in this decision and approval or not, if they want to subdivide lot 8, then they will have to go through a process which will allow for conditions of this improvement of the road to happen at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thanks.
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Kathy?
Well, I'm curious, in the recommended alteration to condition number 6, what would be the process that there would be some sort of guarantee that the road would be improved if, something different happens to the lot? I mean, how is that guaranteed in our processes?
I would just
Final plat. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the question I just asked Kathy was essentially an answer to that question, because I think maybe we could go either way on, condition 6 in terms of that, because even if we don't have it in there and they come back and want to subdivide lot 8, then this issue will come up again, and the road will then at that time clearly go over ADT and the improvements need to be made. So I think either way, it's just kind of a weird thing. Does this condition have an effective law, in the future for this approval? But I don't think it really matters that much, although, maybe it's good to just have it in there for the record that the owner of the property at the time has said that they will improve this lot and all that kind of stuff, in addition to the fact that we'll have to do it either way.
Okay.
And the staff can add to that, but that's my
I understand.
assessment of it.
Just to clarify, having it in the record doesn't necessarily impact future decisions.
I know, but it's
nice. We have to go by what's in the code.
I know,
and we have to go by what's in the code at the time of submittal of application. So we are going through a modification to Chapter 21. So the rules will be different if a partition submitted after theoretically it's approved in December.
Yeah. So there's the legal side, and then there's the landowner, makes a commitment side. But I think really at the end of the day, if that lot is subdivided, then this same issue will be in effect.
Okay, thank you. And just at the risk of being a broken record, for some reason, the ADT trip estimation with the 4 trips per household in this is 24 or 25, Arthur?
I'm sorry, are you asking about the existing? Apologize, I don't understand the question.
Well, I don't understand my question either, but I'll give it another try. It's a little confusing to me because I hear numbers like, the ADT is 25. Is that what you've landed on with 4 trips per household?
No, the 25, the break on 25 is our design standard. So that is through AASHTO, which is actually the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. So that is a national standard. So at 25 ADT or less for this road is a standard, and it's typically 18 foot wide, and actually immigrant meets it and yada, yada. For AASHTO, ADT of 25 to 250 is a different standard, a 22 foot wide road with, different. So that's where the 25 is. It's actually a national design standard. The 4 ADT per household or per lot is my engineering discretion that I have used. The state uses their consultant form, which is 8.9, and I have determined that for our rural county, I believe that 4 trips is a better representation. So again, if it's 6 lots, 6 times 20 or 6 times 4 is 24. So you're just below the AASHTO standard. And if it's 8 lots, 8 times 4 is 32. So now you are above the AASHTO standard. So I hope to God I'm not sounding like I'm crazy, but that's how we basically I just applied the standard. I looked and I calculated based on the lots. I just did some math, and Daniel I think did it better than I did, and said, here's where we believe it would fall, and we will apply the standard. Really black and white, not trying to pick winners and losers. Like, here it is.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful. So I guess I would move more towards, as Kelly mentioned, the clear and objective data applied to this decision. So it seems pretty clear that the 32 is the number, and that is clearly above the 25. And so it seems pretty clear and objective to me. So that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Okay. Actually, Kirk, the hearing's closed, so I don't think we can take any more testimony, correct, Kelly? Okay, yeah. Okay, all right. Are there any other questions or deliberation? And if not, does somebody have a motion? And make sure you unmute yourself.
Well, hell, I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
So basically what we're doing is we're approving the preliminary subdivision as submitted, but we're going to potentially remove a condition. Am I correct on that?
You could remove or modify a condition.
Okay. So then I will, Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the request with amended condition number 6 to state as the submitted proposal by applicant. Does that cover?
I think so, because it was part of the record. So Kathy Clark, let me ask you, do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation with a modification to condition number 6 as proposed by the applicant. All right, do we have a second? All right, I'll second the motion. All right, so we have a motion to approve with a modified condition. Discussion.
Well, I think that we've had a good discussion here. I really do believe in the clear and objective data, and going forward with that, I think that's how I want to make decisions. So I just want to put that out there. It's just what I have to go on, and how I want to look at this dilemma, I guess. So that's really all I really want to say about it. But the data is clear, and so it is what it is. So
yep. Okay. Yeah, I would generally tend to agree with you. I think that in this case, because we have a clear path forward to have these road improvements done in the future, if this lot is subdivided, to me, that makes it much more, if you talk about, housing and trying to develop housing, I think that adding, and I don't know what the cost is, but let's say it's $100,000 onto this project for essentially one lot or no lots that are developable. It does seem to be a bit of a cooling factor for developers to actually do this work if we're going to not have some flexibility. And I think so for me, and Arthur makes a really good point, I think his concern is that there's a lot of roads out there that we never had the teeth essentially to require these improvements to be done. And I think I'm confident that the teeth are still there if we need them, even though we are a little bit over the ATT. I think it's reasonable, in my opinion, to go down this path and require that in the future if this lot's developed. So that's my opinion. Steve, did you have anything to say?
No, I pretty much echo your comments. You know, there's several different issues within this, and we're lacking housing, and there's 7 lots, and knowing the applicants, their word is true, and they will follow through if anything is developed below, and I truly trust that. And I think that this is a win-win for all of us. And given the set of circumstances that we're under with our planning staff not participating early on, and so whole set of circumstances, and I think that we're moving forward in the right direction. Thank you, Chair.
All right. I would add to that the other issue is the capacity of utilities in Wamak, you know, and I think that's a limiting factor that needs to be worked out, and hopefully it will be, and hopefully these can be divided, and then at that time the road will be improved. So Kathy, did you have something else?
Yeah, well, I do really appreciate both of your comments and helping me think through this. And I think that one of the issues here for me as well is that the Planning Commission didn't really discuss this. And that seemed kind of surprising to me, because not that I've had a lot of these, but I can remember a previous issue we talked about with a zoning issue where there was a lot of discussion in the record with the Planning Commission, and that was really helpful to me in my decision. So this, you know, that's absent, and so and then given what comments Commissioner Kramer and Hagee have put forward, you know, I think those are reasonable. So.
Okay. All right. Are there any other comments? If not, I will go ahead and call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I know the staff is somewhat always disappointed when we don't follow your advice, but you know, we do have some latitude, and we took it today. So thank you very much, everybody. And we will be moving on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
You bet.
guys.
All right. Let's see. We're a little bit behind, Mike, for the finance report. Appreciate you hanging with us. Go ahead and give us the finance report.
Okay, well, I'll keep it short and simple. This is the financial report as of the end of June, which is a preliminary one. The thing to remember is when we hit the end of the fiscal year, we have some accrual time where some more charges and revenues will be credited back as we find those out. That's really apparent when we look at the property tax revenue, which is our big one we always have. We're at $10,200,000, which is about $204,000 more than last year at this point in time. However, we still have 2 more months that we're going to accrue back in there that'll increase that. So even though we're at 99% of whether the budget was supposed to be right now, it's going to increase past that as we get the July and the August property tax revenues come in. Those are accrued back into June, as they have been every other year. So we're going to be a little bit higher than that. So we're coming in above the budget as where we were aiming for. When we look at the intergovernmental revenue, this is another one where the accruals are going to come in, and we do that, and that'll pull it back up, because right now it's $28,000 less than last fiscal year at the end of the year, but that's once again due to the timing, the accruals that are going to happen as we look at stuff through there. So that will straighten out and be where it needs to be. The one that's not going to change at any time soon is our investment earnings were down. For the general fund, this is about $190,000 due to what happened with the interest rates, where they're cratered down on our LGIP down to 0.6%, when we'd had a point there for a while was running up over 2. So that was the impact that we had there. The DA's office is executing pretty good on their revenues. They're about 67% versus 121 or 121% that year. And there was a $60,000 decrease in revenue compared to last year. The gap is closing, And it's primarily due to staffing that they had and a lot of their funding coming in on like the grants. When they didn't have a person in those roles, you don't have the grant funding for that. There should be an additional accrual when we get to the end of the fiscal year that'll come back in, so that number is going to shrink as far as the difference under there. Looking at Public Works, once again, this is another department that's greatly impacted by the decreased interest rate because they have their own fund and the interest that comes in there. They were down 50% over where they had been last year on the interest over there, which is about $45,000 hit that he took. Everything else is looking pretty good there in Public Works. When we get down to the building codes, general permits for the general building codes are down about $75,000 compared to last fiscal year. We're still executing about there. We're in the right area. The structural permits are down about $58,000. That's where the driving revenue is for the general building codes. And it's slowly improving over what we've seen over the prior months, but it's still down. The construction excise tax is down, but that's because everything's down, but that's a flow through, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, the electrical permits are only down about $6,000 compared to last fiscal year, so they're fairly steady. And they had a timing, we fixed the timing issue that we had on their permit receipts from last month, so that's looking better. Then we look at the museum. Museum's doing pretty good. They had, their revenues are way up, and that would be because they had a large donation for $12,000. They also had where the city and the county came together and said, we're going to go ahead and fund you an extra $12,500. We're putting our funding into July in the new fiscal year. The city of the Dalles, like I'd mentioned in prior reports, had put it into the prior fiscal year. So with that and the $12,000 donation that they got, that was another, almost $25,000 that they had, which made up for where they would have been on admissions. So they're in pretty good shape at this point in time. As far as discussion on expenses, the general fund in the clerk's office, we had some $17,000 in there that should have been put in one of the capital accounts, and that'll get moved out of there. So although it looks like they're over their appropriation, we had some misclass expenses that will get moved out of there. And that was for some capital equipment that had gotten purchased. The building codes, right now, they're overall, when we look at them, the total expense for the general building codes is $590,000, which is $281,000 decrease over last year, because last year there's some additional transfers and stuff in there to get everything where it needed to be. The total revenue was $621,000, which means that the general building codes is holding steady. They had a fund balance increase at this point of additional $31,000. So they're not in any sort of difficulty, but you got to remember this is also with not having a building official for most of the fiscal year. The electrical, their total expense is $195,000, which is down $29,000 from last fiscal year. So that was an improvement that we had there. Once again, we didn't have the building official, and that would be part of the reason there. Where their total revenue is $94,000, which means we're eating about $100,000 of their fund balance when they go through there. If you remember, we have a fairly high fund balance for that fund, but we have some breathing room in there depending on how things come out. That's something we're going to want to make sure we pay attention to what's going on there. Nothing really out of the ordinary with our other funds. Personnel costs as of the end of the year executed about 91% across the board. So this includes budgeting for the funding of the PERS side account. So we did well on there where we came out. Investments are, of course, only executing about 58% across all funds. And I've touched on that already with a couple funds. And that's due to LGIP basically cratering. Reconciliations were also attached through June. Everything's looking good. One of them looked a little bit odd because it was the AR that was zeroed out, and it's like 0 to 0 that balances. It wasn't that it wasn't done. It was done. It's just, it was the AP. I'm sorry, misspoke. The reason on that is we shut down the system for the last 2 weeks of the month because we were implementing the new Munis system. And so we had a little bit of clarity there, and that's what caused that. That is what the reconciliation was. Things are moving along with the Munis implementation, even though that isn't directly related to the financial report for you right now. We're up live, and we're getting everything straightened out. We're doing a little bit of learning curve for everyone as we go through this. Your financial reports, when I get them put together for you for July, might be delayed a little bit as I'm trying to get them into a nice format to where it'll be clearer as we did. If you remember, the eating reports at first were really horrible till we started working with them. I have to do some massaging on the Munis ones to get to where I find the reports that are going to convey the data to you in a way that's not a wall of numbers that will cause grief for you. So, do you have any questions I can answer for you?
Wall of numbers. Questions for Mike? Excellent. Well, as always, you do an awesome job. Any more comments on Munis in terms of the transition? Just kind of a learning curve for folks. I know I'm in that learning curve trying to figure out how I approve POs and stuff. So,
well, it's a big change for everyone. We've had Eden for a number of years, even though we knew that there was issues with it. Anytime you have change, there's always issues with change management. As in, well, that's not the way we've always done it. It's like, yes, there's change. We're making a few process changes. Yeah, there's a few things where we're trying to take advantage of it to improve some processes and some controls in different spots. But for the most part, yes, there has been complaining anytime there's changing, but that's to be expected. For the most part, everyone's been very open to the idea that it's something new. I have to learn something. What's a new process? And we're working through it. I think it's a big improvement over where we were with Eden. A lot of things are a lot quicker and easier, but we're getting to a better place with it.
Cool.
So Commissioner, just for your knowledge, Kayla will be coming at the next board session to give you an update on how Munis is going.
Excellent. Okay.
She knows much more than I do as far as how Munis is going.
Yeah, Tyler, what'd you have?
I just wanted to ask Mike if he wanted to do a brief update on the auditor comments or save that for the next meeting.
I can give you an update on where they are. I haven't really gone into their comments yet. That would be better for the next meeting, but they were scheduled to be here for 3 days, and they figured after they were here for their pre-audit for 2 days, that was more than enough, and they didn't need the third day. So that's a positive sign. We were giving them everything that they needed. There are some comments that I need to go through as far as getting them information, but that would probably be better for me to make sure I've got a little bit more depth of knowledge before I start responding, and that I've looked at everything that he's had before I give you an answer off the top of my head.
All right, sounds good. Very good. Any other question? Any questions for Mike?
I just want to, Chair Hagee, I'd like to give a shout out to Mike for his involvement with the Fair Board. Attended the meeting last night, and there were some questions about budget, and he answered those and took care of their questions. And just wanted to thank Mike for his involvement in his leadership there. So thank you.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Very good. All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Appreciate it as always. All right. Let's go back to the consent agenda before we go into executive session. We have a Youth Think contract renewal, which is, I think, just a renewal for another year there. We have annual legal notices agreement, which is Kathy, if you have questions there. And then we have our July 4th. Is that right?
21st is what it should be. If it doesn't say 21st, then I'm in deep trouble.
It says 7/4/21. I'm thinking now we.
It does say that it's the 21st. That's because I was doing 8/4 everywhere, and so that's how it got to be 7/4.
No worries. All right, July 21st. All right, we have minutes there. Any questions? Did anybody have any comments on either the minutes or questions? You want to pull any of those out, or are we good to go? Kathy?
Looks like we're good to go. So
that was a thumbs up instead of a finger up. Okay. All right. We have a motion.
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve a consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. All right. Now I'm just trying to find the script for the executive session, which I know you sent to me.
Yeah, it was around 3 or 4 yesterday afternoon. It should have.
Dang. I'm gonna have my, oh, here it is. Okay. All right. Is there anything else before we go into executive session, Kathy Clark?
I don't have anything else, no.
Okay, and you're gonna move us into executive session to.
As soon as you've read the script, I will.
All right, the Wasco County Board of Commissioners will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660, paragraph.
Can't hear, you're floating in and out, Scott, I think because you're turned towards your computer screen.
All right, let me move this over here. Sorry. The Wasco County Board of Commissioners will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-662G, trade negotiations, and ORS 192-662H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. This executive session will be held in a separate virtual room. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session in a separate virtual room. All other members of the audience will remain in the main meeting room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during executive session except to state the general subject of this session as previously announced. No decision will be made in executive session. At the end of executive session, we will return to open session in the regular session virtual meeting room. So with that, we will go to